Hello folks, sorry I missed last week. I was busy being a somber conspiracy theorist. I am ashamed of myself. So this is a little late. Not sure if anyone was actually expecting videos from me, but you know, I like to be timely. So let's see, I'm going to try and make as many videos as I can this week. Let's see how that works out. Luckily for us, not only am I a somber conspiracy theorist though, I am also a college graduate, and I have spent thousands of dollars in loan money to learn screenwriting. So before we start talking about Bastion, this beautifully animated short, I want to actually talk to you about story structure and what you can expect from about 98% of the movies that you see. Sometimes you see films that get away with not being 3-act structure, but they usually have it to some extent at least. So I broke it down in this really horribly designed chart. I'm sorry, I tried. This is what it kind of looks like, sort of, without all the lines. So it's called 3-act structure for a very good reason, because it is made up of 3 acts. The first act, we start off any film or movie with its pre-existing life. And then the first plot point we hit is the inciting incident. This is the point in the film where something happens to the main character that they cannot go back on. That takes you into a rebalancing period, in which the character then needs a push to make to the first act decision, which is usually the wrong choice. But after that there is progress into a pinch, which can be an obstacle, a complication, etc., etc. The midpoint is usually the next sort of bigger pinch that raises the stakes. And also something to note for the first pinch is that it is enacted by the antagonist. And the second pinch comes after the midpoint. Okay, so the second pinch is usually an emotional subplot pinch. Not so much as the first pinch, which is from the antagonist. And then after the second pinch, we go into the false climax. This is where you think the hero is going to win, but is immediately followed up by the low point in the whole film. This is the most dramatic point aside from the climax, which is why I made the line longer. After the low point is sort of a malaise where the character loses their path. Then they have another push into their third act decision, which is usually the right decision because they have made an emotional change at this point, and this brings them to the climax, which everyone should know what a climax is because you went to elementary school, into the resolution. And that's pretty much the whole film. Now, you can usually expect something like this in short films as well, but you can start something off at like the midpoint or the low, or, you know, you don't need to start it off at the beginning, you don't really need to leave it at the end. So, The Last Bastion starts off with absolutely stunning animation. I honestly think they could compete with Disney and easily beat out DreamWorks if they really wanted to pursue that, because I could totally I would love to see an Overwatch movie so much. I would die. Especially since we don't have a story mode as of yet. So, The Last Bastion starts off, and Bastion's asleep. That is the pre-existing life. The inciting incident immediately happens when Ganymede wakes him up, because he can't go back to sleep then, and he has that program that shows up, which is, it's not exactly a push. There's not really a push there. It's just, I have this program, let's do this. So it's immediately into his first decision. Then we have a lot of progress. We don't see any complications until he hears the woodpecker and he goes into the sentry turret mode and we think Ganymede's dead. That is all the pinches and the low point immediately stacked on top of each other. There's no stakes involved. That's the only real complication we see there. So it seems like a low point. Until that point, this whole thing has been a build-up of his and Ganymede's relationship. We even see Ganymede drinking out of his hand at one point, which we can know from film history means that he's nice. We like him. Anyone you see in a movie who's being nice to animals, we know we like them. We know they're nice. If you see someone who's mean to animals in a movie, they're usually the bad guy. Just like Cruella de Vil. So we think Ganymede's dead, but he continues to make progress, which seems like a malaise, but he's still going. And then climax seems to come before the next decision. Okay, so it seems like his malaise is him just wandering along, still following his goal and his decision. And then he hooks into that other Bastion's memories. And it seems that's when the climax begins, because Ganymede just comes back. And they have that emotional struggle between what seems like Bastion being controlled by one of the god programs, and then his emotional relationship with Ganymede, who ends up breaking this sort of spell he's under, and then they go back to the Force, which is definitely a third act decision that is opposite of his first act decision. In any case, at the end it didn't feel like I was completely satisfied, so I got some other opinions on it from people who aren't involved in the Overwatch community and have never played the game, despite my constant begging to please play with me. God damn it. And you know, they kind of followed it for the most part. But I did get both of their opinions on the end because I felt like something wasn't right there. It didn't feel like it paid off the setup of the whole short film. And now, granted, they did something really interesting with this film that they haven't been doing with the other ones. It has no dialogue. So there's no exposition through dialogue like they've had in literally all of the other ones. There's no visual cues aside from that whole big reveal towards the end of what Bastion is. As a controlled omnic, not as a war machine. In the beginning, when he looks at his hands and one of them's a gun, it just broke my heart a little bit because I was like, oh, look at this. And they're totally emotionally manipulating us here. You see him at the beginning covered in flowers, and he's so innocent and sweet and walking through the woods. And I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to build up this emotional relationship with him and Ganymede that is then paid off by Ganymede overcoming this god program towards the end. However, that being said, we did not need 3 solid minutes of them walking through the woods. We needed those pinches. That's what it was missing, was all these complications and pinches that you need a constant flow of ups and downs in a film for it to then have a complicated payoff at the end, and I just didn't feel that. Now, other people might disagree, but this is just my own personal feelings, which is why it's my review, and you can go make yours after this and tell me how wrong I am. Go, feel free to. It didn't have the midpoint up stakes. There was no stakes in it at all. I feel like a lot of these problems could be fixed by there even being a ticking clock, like you have to reach this by so much time. Maybe his clock was set back because he was deactivated at some point and then woke up. We don't have any solid reason to not have any of those things. There wasn't even like a false climax. There was just progress. And it was flat progress. There was no like, oh, we're getting there. It was, oh, here's more woods. And don't get me wrong, the animation's stunning. But it doesn't make up for faults in story. So I guess I'm trying to say is that there wasn't the steady flow of ups and downs. There was only the one complication and then a climax. They really just took the biggest plot points and just shoved them together, like one from each act. You have like sort of setting incident, you have progress, you have a low point, you have progress, and then you have the climax, and then it's over. There should have been some sort of stakes involved, even if there wasn't ups and downs. There could have been a complication. A complication is when you have like a permanent thing that, like, say like Ganymede couldn't carry on because he broke his foot or something like that, and he needed to be carried the whole way or something. That sort of thing. It's something that you can't escape. An obstacle is something that just gets in your way. And there is a third one that is not coming to mind right now, but I'll think of it eventually. Okay, so I'm getting pretty redundant with this, I guess. So yeah, all in all, I thought it was pretty good, even though it didn't feel fully satisfying to me. I still really enjoyed it. I'm not really a subscriber to everything has to follow 3-act structure perfectly, but as long as it feels like the setup is paid off, I'm pretty fine with things. I just didn't feel like that was here nearly as much as it was in the other shorts. But, you know, tell me what you think in the comments below. How do you feel about Giant Murder Wally? I love Giant Murder Wally. And I give this, let's give this 2,000 stars. Where the points don't mean anything! I don't know what 2,000 stars means, but let's give it anyway. It deserves 2,000 stars. Okay, well, I'll see you next time, guys.